For today's practice, you need a chair. It doesn't have to be this official yoga chair, but something without arms is better. And if you can't swing that, you could use a hassock or a stool or something that just gets you higher up off the floor for some variations of standing poses. If you're shorter in stature, you might need a block to raise the floor for your front foot. You could also use a blanket under the mat for that purpose, so that when you sit in the chair, we want the thigh parallel to the floor, about parallel to the floor. I'm also have this pad so that when I lie down on the floor, I can restore my lumbar curve. You can use a hand towel for that. And if you don't need it, don't worry about it. All right, so let's start seated in the chair and just allow yourself to sit as you normally would. So of course, like we're in yoga, so we're like, we'll just sit perfectly. But then if you just kind of relax, what's your tendency in chairs? And this is my tendency. The spine goes into the C curve and the muscles of the back relax. And I'm relying on that connective tissue to hold my spine in place and to hold the sacrum in place. I'm sitting a little bit more on my tailbone, and my pubic bone's pretty high. It's up. Okay. And then generally we'll have people who don't do that as much, but maybe do it sometimes. They perch, and they tend to sit at the front of the chair, maybe especially when they're working at the desk, with a strong arch and some tension here at the front. So let's just use those two options as a way to move through the pelvic tilt. So if it's helpful to hold the sides of the chair with your hands, you can. You don't need to. And even here, like we do when we're on the floor, you can use your feet to create the pelvic tilt. So when I want to push back towards my tailbone, I'm actually pushing my feet isometrically forward and away from me. And then if you drag your heels back towards the chair, it'll pull you into an arch. And so you can make this movement nice and gentle, this rocking, and let's go ahead and bring it in with the breath. So it's an inhale to arch, and an exhale to let go and round. Inhale, pull back, receiving the breath all the way into the belly. Exhale, let it go. Inhale, we're taking in life. Exhale, we can let things go. A few more times on your own. Good. And then let's straddle the chair. So we're going to sit with the legs wide. I'll turn so you can see me. And if you're very tall and your knees, with your feet flat on the floor, your knees are lower than your hip, you'll need to raise the seat of the chair. So you could use your blanket for that or your hand towel. Oops, went right through. Right. So that would create more distance there. And as we go through these poses, if they're way too intense, so the chair actually gets you really low, even though you're like, I'm sitting, I'm not doing real yoga. You are. So sitting this deeply, especially once we open the legs, is a lot lower than you might be without the chair. So this can be just intense physically. So you can raise the seat of the chair with your blanket. Okay. So then with the hands to the inner thighs and the feet pointing in the same direction as the knees. Let's take a bigger cat-cow, so rounding and then pulling back through the hands to arch. I'll show you from the side view. Inhaling into a back bend. Exhale, the whole spine rounds now. And you can use your feet to help and use your hands to help. And then take the right arm alongside the ear and side bend over to the left. Inhale up. Exhale over to the other side, breathing. Side bending right now. Left arm alongside the ear, palm faces the floor. Take some breaths into the left side. Okay, and then let's do it a few more times on each side. As you side bend left, push the left foot into the floor and away, and feel how that displaces your ribs to the right and gives you a more effective stretch. And switch sides when you're ready. Side bend right, push right foot into the floor and away. Feel how your ribs push left. One more time on each side. Very good. Now we'll stay in this wide-legged stance just a little bit longer and twist. So you're going to bring your upper body, your whole torso in line with your right thigh as you push the left leg open. You're dipping that left shoulder towards the floor and even revolving your chest to turn and look behind you. Okay, and then we'll bring the torso over the left leg. Push your right hand into the right thigh and start to turn the chest to look behind you. Breathing here. All this is gentle and moderate. Let's do one more time on each side. You can feel these leveraged twists are deeper, so please don't, we don't have a lot of muscle activation here, so don't be too aggressive. Second side. And then come to the floor right in the middle and bow the head and round the spine. Now, if you get a pinch at the hip crease, push into your hands so your torso doesn't just collapse or compress into the hip joints. Look towards your navel, breathe. And then bring one hand up to its thigh and the other. Push the feet down and apart to come all the way up to vertical. And then let's bring the legs out in front of you. We're scooting towards the forward edge of the chair, just so that you're not back on your tailbone. You're not using the back of the chair. That's part of why they make these hollow in yoga, but also so that your leg can pass through. And we'll cross left ankle over right knee. And then notice where that shifts you in your buttocks. So we'll clear the sit bones if you're suddenly sitting on the buttock muscles. So you get off them and you're on the sit bones themselves. And that can be really hard if the hips are tight, and as soon as you bring that leg up, you're rocking back. So if that's happening for you, put your blanket on the seat of your chair so you're making the pose more accessible. And then go ahead and cross that leg. All right, now as long as you're not sitting on the buttock muscles and you're off your tailbone, you can fold forward if you'd like there to be more stretch. And the tricky thing about this stretch is we're going for a stretch in the outer hip, outer buttock of the left thigh. And sometimes you don't feel it there. So if you're not feeling there at all, instead if you're just feeling it in your low back, I want you to hook your forearms underneath your shin and bring your left leg closer to your chest. And so that now your spine is more vertical. We're not stretching the spine so much as we're stretching the outer hip. Okay, and then we'll have that leg back down, resting on the thigh, left ankle across right thigh, and we're going to twist to your right. So take the left hand to the arch of the left foot, rotate the arms so that the palm faces out, and push the back of the hand into the sole of the foot. And then take that free hand behind you, grab the chair anywhere that works for you, and then drive downward with your feet and your sit bones to lift the spine, lengthen, and turn your chest open to the right. As you do that, instead of letting your whole pelvis follow, spin your pelvis counterclockwise and feel those internal and external obliques wrapping around your entire waist and the sides of the body. And now they're working in conjunction. When the pelvis goes one way and the ribs go the other, you feel that wrapping around of the obliques. That's what we want. All right, lovely. And then release. I'm going to do a little cat-cow. Arching with the inhale, rounding with your exhale. Use your feet. Good. And we'll cross right thigh over left, and we're going for that stretch in the outer buttock. If you just feel it in your back or you can't get off your tailbone, sit up on some height like I'm showing. And then it's optional. You can fold forward. Can you go to just like a 5 for intensity here? And if you can't get there at all, you don't need to stretch your outer hip. Your outer hip's already open. Again, if you just feel it in the low back and not the buttock, scoop your forearms under the shin and draw the leg closer to your chest. This is a letting go pose. Can you tell that? So emphasizing the exhales can help. Emphasizing a feeling of downward movement. Push left foot into the floor to drive yourself upright. And we'll take our twist to the left. So the right hand goes to the outside of the right foot. Back of hand pushes into sole of foot. That free arm can go anywhere on the chair to help you. So many variations here. Don't go too deep, too fast. And as the ribs turn left, spiral your pelvis right. And feel those obliques wrapping around you like a blanket. Like sheets of saran wrap. When saran wrap or that plastic wrap works perfectly, isn't that satisfying? You unroll it, you tear it, and it doesn't stick to itself. And then you wrap it over something and it just works as intended. That's a great moment. All right, and then we come back to center and grab a hold of the seat of the chair or the edges of the blanket or the back of the chair if your chair has a back. And then you're going to do this lifting up action through the hands, right? Not to lift the chair, but to help engage a little bit more of your back muscles in your back bend. And take a couple of inhales here. So you're pulling anywhere you can get leverage. You can even pull on the back of your thighs if that's the only option that you have. And lift into this back bend, chin up, throat open, chest lifted. And this is the prana version of our movement of energy. This is the inhale. This is the upward moving energy. Can you feel the breath come up into the chest? Can you feel it rise up? Okay. And then a soft little pelvic tilt. Use your feet. And we're going to take that twist one more time. So left ankle across right knee. We're twisting right. And now see if you have more back muscles assisting the twist. So yes, the abdominals help the twist, but lots of muscles in your back do too. Ribs spin right, navel spins left, same setup as before. Figure 4 in the legs, back of hand to sole of foot, they press into one another. Release, switch sides. Twist left with your ribs, right with your navel. Feel and allow the back muscles to work without pinching. Pinching means they're working too much. Lovely. And then we'll scoot. That blanket is now too high for me. I'm going to scoot to the edge of the chair, legs out in front of you, so your legs are more open than a 90-degree angle. Your feet are in front of the knees, and then drive the feet into the floor, and you're pushing the spine backwards. You can now hook the hands on the inner thighs or the outer thighs, whichever feels better for you, and let the head drop. And emphasize the exhale, this letting go. Make this letting go active. Sometimes letting go it's a conscious thing, right? We just think like, oh, I just do nothing. It's like, well, it might be a deliberate set of actions that you take to let go. So we can assist that here with the exhale, toning the abdominals, wrapping those abdominals, all those layers we saw, tucking in to your little kangaroo pouch, zipping up, hugging and squeezing the ribs. And then pull back through your heels to bring yourself upright. Last time doing this figure 4 twist, left ankle across right knee, turn the ribs right, belly left. Now can you feel your back muscles working, and are you more aware of the abdominals working? Can you feel like the subtlety and it's almost like they crinkle and they start to turn on in all these different sections. Right, then we switch sides, right ankle over left knee, and twist left with the ribs, right with the belly. Can you feel the wrap of the musculature all the way up to the armpit, all the way around these lower ribs, the mid ribs, the waist, the pelvic girdle? Okay, very good. And then let's push into the feet and lift your butt up and just kind of in your forward fold here with generously bent knees and legs nice and wide. Kind of sway the torso, rotate the torso, side bend, shift left and right, moving organically. Use your feet, push into one foot then the other. Good. And if you can bring your feet to about outer hip distance, if you don't have any disc issues and you don't have osteoporosis, and you do have a hyperlordosis, a strong arch in the low back, round up one vertebrae at a time. And if that's not you, lift halfway up, flatten your back till your torso is parallel to the floor, then push both feet down and isometrically apart to come up with a flat back. Good. Breathe and feel. Tadasana. And we want to bring Prana and Apana, this upward movement and downward movement, into balance. So as you inhale, the movement of the energy is both up and down. As you exhale, the movement of the energy is both up and down. Great. So if you have a yoga chair with no back, feel free to step your right leg through the back of the chair for a high lunge. Now, probably no one at home except maybe a couple of yoga teachers have that prop. So you can turn your chair sideways. That's why it's better if it doesn't have arms. Right foot forward, left leg back. Now, if you're shorter, you'll need the block under the front foot. Don't worry so much about the back leg. If you're taller, you'll need the blanket under the seat of the chair. And it's best if the chair is on a non-slip surface. So put it on your yoga mat. I'm going to show you from the front view. So as I'm on the chair, instead of side bending or leaning towards the back of the chair or trying to have my entire pelvis on the chair, go ahead and scoot all the way to the edge. So the only front edge of the chair. So the only thing that's on the chair is the back of your front leg and that right sit bone. Adjust the front foot. So instead of it being in line with your pubic bone, it's as wide as the hip joint, and the feet are wide as the pelvis, and push back through that back leg, straightening the back leg. Push into your front foot as though you could lift off the chair. Now, if all of this is like, oh my God, it's so intense, put the blanket on the chair so that this opening is not so deep. If you have a back to your chair, you can push into it so that your torso isn't leaning towards the chair. Take the left arm up, nice and tall, right up to the ceiling, and breathe. One more long, slow, deep breath. And with that exhale, releasing the arm, release the back leg, and we'll change sides. Adjust yourself so that the back of the left thigh is now at the seat of the chair, and the front foot is as wide as the hip joint. I'm trying to angle myself to the camera so that I'm square to the camera so it looks straight. And then the hand can push into the back of the chair so the torso doesn't lean towards the back of the chair. And if all of this is too intense, if the sensations are above a 5 or a 7, especially a 7, put a blanket there on the seat of the chair. When you're ready, right arm comes up alongside the ear, stretch up, push into both feet as though you could lift out of the chair at any moment. If there's no way you could lift and get any power, you need to put a blanket on the seat of your chair. And then we just go with the long, slow breaths. I'm pushing into my legs. My legs are very active, but I'm relying on the chair to support me at about 25%. 75%, my legs are holding me up. 25%, I have this assist. And with the exhale, release your arm, bend the back knee, and bring that leg forward. We'll come to standing. Place the chair at the top of the mat with the seat facing away from you so you have the back of the chair, and we'll come into a variation of down dog with the torso parallel to the floor. Palms of my hands are pushing flat. They're facing the floor. They're pushing into the back of the chair. You can certainly do this if you're on a hassock, right? If you're using the sofa or whatever you have in front of you, even the edge of a table, as long as it doesn't slide away or tip. Push down into your furniture so that the shoulders don't collapse. You're pushing down as though to lift the torso, keeping the shoulders high towards the ceiling, away from the ears, and then breathing. How does the breath move in the body now? How does the shape of the pose change it? Can you breathe all the way into your pelvis, all the way to your pelvic floor? Can you breathe all the way up into the armpits, up into the ribs, up into the throat, up into the skull? Bend the knees softly, drive the feet down and apart, push into your hands, and shift forward to a variation of plank. So we're up on the toes, the feet can come together. You can adjust your stance depending upon how steady your furniture is. You can always do this against a wall. And this is easier than a floor plank. Yes? So we're just finding something moderate here where the torso is now as in line as possible. You're no longer hinging at your hips. Your butt's not out behind you. The pelvis is shifted forward. And you're tucking in your rectus abdominis, your six-pack into your kangaroo pouch. Can you feel that little kangaroo pouch of your transverse abdominis as it moves from hip point across to the other hip point, all the way down to the pubic bone? It's like a little bikini. Your abdominal bikini. That's what we call them, the bikini abdominals. And then shift forward a little more. You're going to adjust where you are, just how you're using your furniture, and take it into a back bend. So from down dog, the butt's way out behind you. Plank, the pelvis is more forward. But then like an up dog with the shoulders rolling back, the pelvis comes forward even more. The chest lifts, heels lift strongly. Push the floor away, lift your chest to the ceiling. And this might feel easier than usual because you're using your legs. When you're flat on the floor, it's really hard to use your legs. Inhale here, exhale back to dog. Feel your breath. Bend the knees, take your hands to the very edge of whatever piece of furniture or the wall you're using, and then see if you could lift one hand away than the other, and maybe both. And if you can, it's great. That means you're really sitting in your legs. But if you try to take your hands off and you lurch or collapse, you're using your arms desperately to stay on. So sit into your legs. Really sit back into this Ardha Utkatasana. The knees are bent deeply. And see if you can float the hands. Rotate the palms so they face each other. Draw the shoulders away from the ears, sit even a little lower. You might even come into a squat here. And then to stand, push the feet down and apart. Reach up, inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, arms by your side. Nicely done. We'll spin the chair so it faces you. And definitely the chair has to be on a mat. Even better is the chair is against a wall, so that it won't move forward and away from you. We'll put the right foot on the seat of the chair and then hop that left foot back into a high lunge. So this is pretty deep. It's like the plank pose that you did, but except that right foot is forward. Left hand stays on the seat of the chair. Roll to the pinky edge of that front foot so the leg opens like a little Baddha Konasana, and twist right. Let your pelvis twist right. Everything's turning right here. And then we'll come back to center and switch sides. Left foot up on the chair. Right hand stays on the seat of the chair. That left leg tips open into a Baddha Konasana. Everything turns, your pelvis and your ribs. It should feel pretty easy when you let the pelvis turn to stack your shoulders. And so we're not really twisting, we're just doing a hip opening. So again, like this, doing the pose like this is fine. Just clear that we're not twisting truly. Okay? And we'll come back to center, switch sides again. And then this is pretty deep, so you might have to bring the hand up to the back of the chair. This time we're going to turn the upper body without turning the pelvis. So the navel spins left. Get your pubic bone away from the inside of your front thigh. And use your right hand on the front thigh to help leverage your upper body, turning right. Doesn't that feel different? That's a twist. Okay, release. Second side. Notice that you could do this whole class without the chair if you get really sick of the chair. Okay, so maybe this right hand needs to come up to the back of the chair so you're higher, you're not so deep. Left hand to your front thigh. Turn your ribs left, but your navel right. That takes a lot of conscious attention. Lift that back heel. And keep that pubic bone centered on the midline. Okay, we'll exit the pose, stand in Tadasana, and turn the chair around. Come to your chair dog. Oh, I'm on my menstrual cycle, so I'm trying not to invert. That's why but you could walk your hands, if the chair is steady, you could walk your hands down pretty low. You can, of course, do hands on the floor as well. But I'm trying to work with that flow down and out and not turn it upside down or invert it. Inhale into the plank. Pelvis comes forward. And then let the pelvis come forward as you're ready a little bit more into your up dog. You can adjust your distance from the chair. You can I walked a little closer. That feels better. Pelvis goes forward. Chest opens. Throat lifts. Shoulders roll back. Use an exhale to come back to your dog pose. Sit into Ardha Utkatasana, so the knees are bent deeply, thighs parallel to the floor, fingertips just touch the chair. Slide one shoulder back into the socket, float that hand up, then try the other one, then try both. Change it into Utkatasana, squat. So you're not squatting all the way, just closer. Drive the feet down and apart. Inhale, come up. Exhale, release your arms. Okay, very good. Now let's set up the chair for Virabhadrasana 2. So the seat of the chair faces the long edge of the mat. The back of the chair will be towards the back of you. And you can raise the chair with a blanket. So raise the seat of the chair with a blanket if necessary. Let's turn the left foot out 90 degrees first. And set up yourself the same way so that only your whole pelvis isn't on the chair. I want the whole back leg half of your pelvis floating in air, and you're only receiving support under that front leg sit bone. You'll have to probably walk the foot towards the wall behind you so that the foot's in line with the outer hip. Take your front leg hand, left hand to the inner thigh, palm facing forward, and twist your ribs towards your back leg. Now, I do want to say that as you're in this pose, the pelvis is turning towards the front. Like you can really see when you sit this deeply that the pelvis has to turn, and it just does, towards the front leg. And the benefit we get through releasing the psoas of the back leg side is enhanced by this twist. So as you lift, zip up, rotate your ribs towards the back leg, draw that front shoulder back in the socket, even as your pelvis stays relatively fixed, facing the front knee a little bit. Okay? It's totally fine if your back knee is bent like really strongly here. Sitting this low in a chair is hard. Reach the back arm towards the back of the mat and pull your torso away from your front leg. Once you feel the sideline of the body engaging, pulling towards the back leg, float the front arm. Look over the back, fingertips. Look at what you're leaving behind. All of us are leaving a lot behind in this quarantine era. So much we've had to let go of, release, Things are changed, our jobs change, work changes, friends, family, everything's shifting. Stay in the same exact pose and look over the front fingertips. And there's the unknown future. Can you find the balance between the two? And then release your arms, bend that back knee, turn towards the front leg, and then bring that back leg all the way forward so you're sitting facing that short edge of your mat. Shift forward, lean forward, drive the feet down into the mat and isometrically apart. That'll bring you to standing. And then we'll set up the chair for the second side. I'm positioning it, since I'm still facing the camera the same way, I moved my chair so that my back foot's still on the mat. Now look at how my body reacts to the chair. See this big, long side bend where I collapse into the front hip because it's so deep, so we're so low, and my torso's not centered or vertical. So we're going to make our adjustments. I'm getting my whole back half of the pelvis off the chair. Cut the back heel down. If you can't straighten your leg, that foot won't ground, and that's fine, okay? And then take the back of your front hand to the front thigh, inner thigh, push into it. Oop, gotta move that foot over. So the foot's in line with the outer hip. And then start to work your twist. Feel how the ribs are free to turn towards the back leg as the pelvis keeps its stable position angled slightly towards the front leg. Breathe here, waiting for the body to adjust and adapt to this movement. Feel where the breath goes in the pose. And then reach that back arm out. So the goal here is to pull and reach through that back arm, pulling the torso vertical till your chin and your sternum is lined up with your pubic bone. That should make the pose more intense. Are you doing 75% of the pose with your legs, 25% with a chair? I had reversed that ratio myself, so I'm going to try to get at least 50-50 work here. Top arm can float up when I feel centered, and then look towards that back hand and what we're leaving behind. And looking towards the front hand. All those possibilities. And finding your steadiness in the presence, your centered body, literally centered between the tension of the past and the future, the pulls, the letting goes. And then release the arms, bend that back knee, turn towards your front leg, bring that leg forward, scooting towards that short end of your mat. When you're ready, lean forward, drive both feet down and isometrically apart to come up to standing. Circle the arms up. Exhale, release your arms. Do that a few more times. Tuck your rectus into your kangaroo bikini abdominals. One more time. Feel all those abdominals wrapping around the sides of the ribs. Isn't that great? Very good. And then let's take eagle pose. So I'm coming back to the wall, so I'm a little bit supported here. And then cross left thigh over right. You don't have to hook that back foot under. It can be quite distorting to all the other structures above. So even though I can do that, I've let go of that so I can keep my pelvis more square. And the wall tells me that I've kept my hips more square. I'll sit into the pose. Left thigh is on top. That means right arm is on top. Once we cross the arms in front, and then breathe here. Breathe into the upper back. Gently hug the thighs together. Hug the forearms together. And then unwind, push up to straight, and then come in for the second side. Adjust your foot away from the wall the right amount so that the pelvis feels stable and level. And then opposite arm crosses on top. So it's right thigh over left, left arm over right. Squeeze the thighs in at like 2%. And squeeze the forearms in at 2%. And this is a holding pose, right? So feel the flush and the release as you release your arms, your legs, come up to standing, and letting all that energy move through the body, both up and down. Does your breath come into the pelvic bowl? Okay, let's do another standing pose with the chair. Side angle pose, Parshvanasana. All right, all those same adjustments. So just the front sit bone and back of the thigh is on the floor. Look how much my front foot wants to distort. So I'm going to walk that front foot towards the wall behind me. And then lean my elbow on the front thigh, and I'm going to drag that forearm back towards the wall behind me to help twist the ribs. And I can really feel the twist so much more when, first of all, we're deeper in the pose. Second of all, the pelvis is held a little more. It's harder to crank the pelvis open with the twist because of the chair. Push down into your feet and isometrically apart as though you were going to stand up out of the chair. And then take that top elbow forward until the elbow's in line with your trunk. It's not behind you. So shift that forward, bring that thumb close to the shoulder, and slide that top arm right alongside the ear. Breathing here. Can you feel the reach of the fingertips and then the push of the back foot down into the mat? Feel the parshvaness, the sideness of the pose. Very good. And then release the top arm, turn to face the front leg, bend that back knee, swing it forward, scoot forward to the short end of the mat, drive both feet down and isometrically apart to float the pelvis, and then come up to standing, circle the arms, zip in, wrap your ribs with your abdominals. Exhale, release the arms. Second side. Just the front sit bone and thigh are on the mat, on the chair, and walk the foot so it's the outer edges in line with the outer hip. And we cut the back heel down. If you're too far forward on the chair, you can't do the back leg, right? So we have to get the whole back half of the pelvis off the chair. Forearm to front thigh, drag that elbow and forearm back to help spin the chest. And then top elbow moves forward, hinge at the elbow so the thumb is close to the shoulder. Slide that top arm alongside the face. And to find the parshva of the pose, right, we're reaching through that top arm as we drive through the outer back heel. So you may have to lift up off your chair to get that parshva effect, or just have the barest hint of it under the front leg. And breathing here, revolving the chest, looking towards that top armpit. All right, and then we look towards the front foot, release the top arm, bend that back knee, swing it forward, shift towards the short end of your mat, And then push the feet down and isometrically apart. Circle the arms, reach up, inhale. Exhale, arms by your side. 2 more times. Okay. We'll try our chair vinyasa. So chair against the wall. For more stability, definitely on the mat. We'll come to the dog shape. Pushing palms down so the shoulder girdle lifts up. Spine can sink towards the floor as long as you're zipped up and you're in the sheath of all those abdominal supports. Inhale into your plank. Exhale back to dog. A few more times at your pace to plank with the inhale, to dog with the exhale. And then finding your up dog, shortening the stance if that works for you. Push into the ball mounts. Feel those heels lift. Send the pelvis forward. Lift the chest. Big inhale. Exhale, dog. Sit into that Utkatasana. Draw one shoulder back away from the chair, deep into the socket. See if it can float. And try the other. And try both. And then inhale, rise up. Exhale, circle the arms down. Okay. So let's take the chair off the mat and come to lying down on your mat. One hand on the bikini abdominals, one hand just below the collarbones. Knees are bent, feet are on the floor, and breathe. Feel how much breath you've gotten down into the pelvis. And then the soft, easy expansion of the ribs. Arms come into goalpost. Tip your knees over to your right. Holding this twist, make the feet active so you don't just flop the legs to the floor and reposition them. My legs are nice and wide because I want to emphasize the back bend. Narrow your feet if you're softening your arch and the lumbar spine. And gradually, as you're ready, walk that left foot closer to the left buttock. You can use your left hand to help. That leg, you might even point that foot. So it's like in a virasana. I'm going to spin around just so you can see me if you're not sure. It's like a cheating Supta Ardha Virasana. I'm going for a quad stretch. If this is too much, if you know you get a better quad stretch, because we want a quad stretch, we're not stretching the knee, we're not stretching the back. The back is contracting, abdominals should be contracting, and the sensation should be in the thigh and in the waist. You can stand and use the hand to the wall or the chair and get your quad stretch that way, if this is more effective. Okay, and then you can free up that left foot. Push into the feet to come back to center. Push, pull with the feet to get your pelvic tilt. Okay, and then we'll tip the knees left. Again, don't relax the legs. Keep the feet pressing down into the mat. Not just flopping and hanging on your sacral tissue. And then as you're ready, to the depth that you need, you can walk that right foot closer to the buttock. Toes can stay tucked under, and some of you can point that foot straight back and go for that deeper quad stretch. So as release in this position, head is turned right as we stretch through the right front body, so as right side body. Use your breath to move the energy through. And slowly slide out that right foot. Push into your feet to come back up to center. Push into your feet to work your pelvic tilt. And then roll to your side, push up to hands and knees slowly. And let's bring the chair back to the mat. And the kind of chair you have is important here. So I actually have this little cross beam in front where I can place my hands for a cobra variation. And if you're fairly comfortable, and you can try with the chair on the mat first, but eventually we allow the chair to slide away from us. We can have it on the wood floor. Come down to the belly. And if you don't have the crossbar for your hands, you can use the legs of your chair. So we're going to reach out with the legs of the chair, pull the chair close, or wiggle yourself close to it if you're still on the mat. Now remember how the back bend felt better when you were using your legs. Now we're pointing our feet in a similar way. You could even floint if you want. So the ball mounts are tucked under. But I recommend pushing tops of the feet into the floor. Push down and feel all those muscles engage in the legs. And you're going to pull the legs of the chair towards the floor to start to lift the chest. Draw the shoulders back and away from the ears. You can pull the chair close to you, right? And then find that abdominal sheath. Wrap the entire ribs. Tuck in that rectus abdominis to the bikini abdominals, and then slide the chair forward with your exhale. Inhale. I exhaled as I said inhale. You could pull the chair back towards you. So you can use the breath either way. You can inhale or to stretch the arms forward. Exhale to recruit more abdominals as you pull the chair towards you and come up. And I know many of you reverse the breath because it works better for your body, so experiment with it. And then release down. All right, let go of the chair. Rest on your chin or your forehead. Bend both knees. Tip the legs slowly and with control from side to side. And then come back to center. And get the chair to the right distance from you so that you can push down into a part of the chair. You can push into the floor. It's a Sphinx variation. And some of you might even be able to bring your hands up to the seat of the chair. Don't tip it. Push down to lift up. And then exhale, release. Good. And then we'll prop up to the forearm. Bend the back knee, externally rotate the leg. Let's do the right leg. Externally rotate that right leg and push the knee into the floor till the right buttock sticks up. Then bend the knee deeply so the foot comes closer to the buttock. Grab it with your right hand. Swing that knee back in till the thigh is parallel to the other one. Draw the shoulder back, right shoulder back, elbow to the ceiling. Square your pelvis, square your ribs. So your ribs have to twist a little left. Push into your left forearm, the floor arm, to help elevate the chest for this Ardha Dhanurasana. And then release. And we can switch sides. Externally rotate, widen that left knee like a little Baddha Konasana. Push the knee into the floor till your buttock sticks up. That should allow you to bend the knee quite deeply. Grab a hold of that left ankle with your left hand. Swing the thighs parallel. Draw that left shoulder back, left elbow to the ceiling. Push right arm, forearm into the floor. And spin your ribs right as that left shoulder pulls back. And then release. Was one side tighter? Did one side give you a much more solid, good stretch? That for me was the right side, so I'm going to go back and do the right side one more time. And you can do both legs. If they felt symmetrical, you couldn't tell the difference. And I'm going to hang on to my right foot because the right thigh now caught up. Bend my left knee. Stick my butt up first. As I push the knees lightly down into the floor. Bend the elbows, draw the shoulders back. Then lift up into the full pose. Breathe into the abdominals. Massage the organs. And then release all the way down. Turn your head to one side. Rest on your side of the face. Bend the knees, tip the knees slowly and with control. Tip them from side to side. And then push up to forearms and knees. Walk the knees forward. Come into child's pose. Push into your hands, swing the legs around, and we'll take a wide-legged forward fold. Chair can be on the floor so it can slide away from you. I'll try to square myself to the camera so you can see. Point the feet to direct the stretch more to the inner thighs instead of the hamstrings. I'm untucking my sit bones and getting myself off my gluteal muscles because I need to do that. If you're very, very flexible through the low back, you won't need to do that. And then you can stay upright. If you're short in the hamstrings, if this is intense, just here you stay. And if it's not intense, you can fold forward, keeping the front body long by having the hands on the seat of the chair. At any point, you can walk the hands down the legs of the chair. Push down on the chair, pull it towards you to help bring you upright. And if you have a strong arch in the low back, taking your Shavasana with your legs on the chair is lovely. And if you want to do that for the psoas release, but you tend to lose the arch in your back, I want you to grab your hand towel and place that under your low back to preserve the arch. A blanket can be for under the head for our Shavasana. So when you set up the legs on the chair, we want the legs not quite at 90, so the angle of the legs is a little more open than that. And since my back can flatten right to the floor, I'm going to use a little roll, pushing into the calves, lifting the pelvis up. That feels better. Okay. And you can cover yourself with a blanket or use it behind the head to support the head. And to help with the Apana, this letting go, this grounding, this sinking, you can have the palms face down. It could even be on the torso. And if you're working on receiving, you can have the arms wide from the body with the palms up. You can feel how energetically they're so different. And they're both very good, and we want to have them in balance. So choose what you need today. And then remember all those anatomy pictures you saw, the inside of you. You get to have all those parts, or at least most of them, right? And feel the organs move, following, responding to your breath. Feel the kidneys moving in response to the breath, the bladder. And feel the bones moving away from each other and moving closer to each other in response to the breath. Feel how easily the muscles lengthen and shorten without tension, without negative tension. feeling the security of the floor, the stillness of your body. Feel how the constant movement has quieted, or it's adjusted to it the appropriate amount. Think of 3 things you'd like to let go. Use your exhale to let them go. And as you let things go, there's space for new things to come in, right? There's just only so much capacity that you have. And we let things go in order to bring new things in. So feeling, sensing, intuiting, allowing for the possibility of what can arise, and you can allow yourself to receive. Wiggle the fingers and the toes. Bring one leg off the chair at a time. Push it away with your feet. Roll to your side. Come up to an easy upright seat. Hands to heart center. Namaste. Thanks for joining me. Have a great week.